everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to talk about Ridley Scott, the great revered director, and go over the best movies throughout his illustrious career. And as usual with these breakdowns, I'll try and avoid spoilers, but you can check out the movies first within the video description, just in case you haven't seen them yet before referring to this breakdown. So we will start off this list then with Kingdom of Heaven, the director's cut, released shortly after 2004. Scott's epic retelling of the battles between the Christians and Muslims within the 18th century Crusades, focusing on Orlando Bloom's Balian, a blacksmith who transcends himself into military general, protecting the civilians of Ibelin in the last stand. Now the theatrical version was flawed in terms of its pacing and characterization, but the extended version, clocking in at just over 3 hours, was much more measured, adding more weight, especially with the supporting characters. And that impressive supporting cast very much helps a more lackluster lead performance from Orlando Bloom, who just doesn't have the stoic presence to carry this type of film. Whilst the film itself is not a complete masterpiece, the cinematography is mightily impressive, with plenty of lush visuals and compositions, shot majority on real location, and it's very much fabulous to look at on any big screen. And yes, we do get plenty of spectacle, one stand-up sequence in particular as we see Balian charging out his forces to protect the innocents within Ibelin, and then later on in the climatic last stand, an all-out effort to protect the civilians once more. And overall, Kingdom of Heaven, the director's cut, is just much more of a resounding and complete movie, far superior to its theatrical effort. We'll then go on to the next entry on this list, and one of Scott's most revered works, and that is of course BladeRunner, the dystopian science fiction adaptation of Philip K. Dick's novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, sees Harrison Ford hunting down the rebellious androids known as replicants. Now the movie itself plays very much like a noir-esque detective thriller that doesn't really move at a fast pace, if I'm being honest, and there are far more art house sensibilities here, much more than seeing a typical science fiction actioner. But it's still hard to deny the aesthetics of the futuristic landscapes, creating that dark, eerie, brooding atmosphere, which really is the most distinctive achievement of the movie itself. Despite the aimless debate over whether Decker is a replicant or not, the cinematography was hugely influential in the cyberpunk genre, impacting great anime movies such as Akira, and that's the film's real legacy despite being a flop on its initial release. So very much a flawed storytelling but visual masterpiece overall in Blade Runner. We'll then move on to what is without doubt one of Scott's most underappreciated efforts, and that is Black Rain. We see New York cops Michael Douglas and Andy Garcia travel to Osaka in Japan to track down a notorious gangster and become embroiled in a war between two Yakuza gangs. Dark, gritty and tense, Scott once more shows his ability to create that real rich atmosphere and apply much more of a composure and sophistication. The movie has a great cast with indeed the great Michael Douglas in the lead role, and maybe because there aren't as many quotable scenes or iconic dialogue, maybe that's why Black Rain doesn't get the same kind of kudos as Scott's other works. But it's still a great effort overall and most definitely deserves way more credit than what it gets, or indeed it doesn't get. Very much a hard, gritty, violent film, but still compelling nonetheless. And despite the lack of credit, the film was actually very successful at the box office when it was released back in 1989. So a fine entry also in Ridley Scott's career with Black Rain. We'll then move on to one of Scott's most spectacular efforts, and that is Black Hawk Down. Released in 2001, it charts the real-life events around the military conflict within Mogadishu in Somalia in 1993, where we see a US military unit sent on a peacekeeping mission coming under heavy attack from militia. A task force is assigned shortly afterwards to apprehend the militia leader known as Mohammed Adid. To say their mission is fraught with danger is a massive understatement, as the US troops are subject to a relentless, never-ending array of attacks and face a massive fight for survival, let alone to combat the enemy. The film itself is not too deep on story or characterization, despite that huge ensemble cast of actors. Black Hawk Down is a pure attack on the senses, literally wall-to-wall combat, action and intensity. Very stark and uncompromising in its depiction of violence, Scott unleashes at times a dizzying array of colours, edits and transitions, but the action remains coherent and compelling, and just on a pure cinematic level, it's absolutely an adrenaline rush, and still today one of the best translations on the big screen of military warfare. And if anybody out there ever wanted a live action Call of Duty film, it really doesn't get any closer than Black Hawk Down. We'll then come up to the runner-up on this list, and it is the awesome Gladiator. Released in 2000, bringing back the sword and sandal genre to a modern day audience in a very big way, as we have Russell Crowe's Roman soldier Maximus Aurelius being betrayed by the underhanded emperor-in-waiting Commodus before coming back as a gladiator slave to wreak vengeance. Straightforward, compelling story and spectacle, the movie is still as watchable today as what it was when it was released. Very much one of the most influential films of the 2000s decade, not only in reviving the historical epics, but also in making an A-list superstar out of Russell Crowe. The movie itself stands as one of Ridley Scott's biggest commercial successes, and also gaining a strong critical reception, going on to win 5 Oscar awards, but strangely Scott was denied the Best Director award in favour of Steven Soderbergh for Traffic. But despite that oversight and perhaps error, the film is still magnificent, its legacy still intact culturally today, many years after its over release, and whatever the upcoming sequel turns out to be, I'm pretty sure it won't be anywhere near as important or indeed impactful as the original. But despite all of its qualities, it does remain at number 2. And we do come on then to the number 1 position within this breakdown, the best Ridley Scott movie, and I think most fans and critics would agree it is, of course, Alien. Set in the far distant future, the crew members amongst the Nostromo spaceship find themselves isolated and attacked by a lethal extraterrestrial alien monster, leading to a fight for their lives and survival. Integral, iconic and influential in so many ways, very much being the first of its kind in an expansive science fiction horror setting, very much groundbreaking in both genres, delivering first one of the most iconic movie monsters of all time, so unique and terrifying in both its design and effect. It did of course make a complete superstar out of Sigourney Weaver. Her performance and role as Lieutenant Ellen Ripley still stands today as one of the top, if not the most significant, female cinematic characters within mainstream cinema. Yes, her iconic status was elevated even further with the sequel Aliens, directed by James Cameron in 1986, which was much more spectacular and action-driven, but the first film is still superior as a stellar exercise of stillness and claustrophobia, very much creating that hollow atmosphere within space that you would come to expect with that type of environment. It really is a masterful work from Ridley Scott that still stands unmatched today, certainly at the top of the Alien franchise, from which the following entries, aside from Aliens, have really fallen down in quality, and sadly some of these entries have been directed by Ridley Scott himself, whether we talk about Prometheus or Alien Covenant. But despite all of that, Alien still remains a magnificent horror masterpiece, its impact still very much lasting within the current generation, as we've already seen within the latest sequel and release in terms of Alien Romulus. And whilst you certainly have to be patient with the first film, it doesn't really have any big explosive sequences. You just have to appreciate it much more in terms of a minimalistic horror that builds up to an escalating effect as it heads towards its climax. So without question, his most iconic, most revered film, Alien still stands today as the best overall entry within Ridley Scott's great film career. So that's my overall thoughts and feelings and breakdown of the best films within Ridley Scott's career. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If there are any entries that you feel I've missed, drop them a mention within the comments so we can have further discussion. And if you have any other films, topics, movies or television series or any other issues within the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover, then also let me know within the comments and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves and I will see you very, very soon.